Welcome to Attached, a platform for adding breadth and depth to everyday living. I'm Yakov Danishefsky, and this is the Shovavim series, a special release of tools and principles to help increase self-understanding and control for a life of elevated Kedusha. Okay, so what does a person do if they find themselves caught in a thought loop, in a preoccupation with a particular behavior that they know they don't want to be doing, but they've become very preoccupied by? And they know that in the past this has led them to actually acting on the behavior more times than they would have wanted to. So how do we respond to the preoccupation? So this is where the practice that is very often talked about, but not necessarily so often actually utilized, of mindfulness, of awareness of our thoughts and of meditation, really can be extremely useful. So there's a method of something called ACT, which is an acronym for Acceptance, Commitment, Take Action. It actually kind of has two acronyms. It's really both the same. ACT stands for Acceptance, Commitment, Take Action. It also stands for Acceptance, Commitment, Therapy. It's a form of therapy. It's really a form of what's called CBT, but it's a second wave of CBT, as they refer to it. And Acceptance, Commitment, Take Action has the following basic premise, which is very simple, but very, very important. The basic premise, the most fundamental piece, is that our thoughts and our feelings and cravings and urges are like quicksand. Meaning to say that the more that we try and fight against them, the more that we try to negate them and get rid of them, the more that they pull us in. So just like quicksand, if a person is caught in quicksand and they try to force their way out, they're going to get sucked deeper into it. And instead, apparently, the best way to try and get yourself out of quicksand is to just actually stop fighting it, is to just lie flat as much as possible. And the same is true with our thoughts and feelings. It's very counterintuitive. But if I am thinking about something, and I try to tell myself to stop thinking about that thing, I try to just get the thought out of my head, to tell myself, stop thinking that, or I have a feeling, I'm angry, I'm sad, stop being angry, don't be angry about that. Actually what happens is that I get pulled more into it. Because really, if you think about it, the only thing I'm doing, if I'm thinking X, then I tell myself, don't think X. All I'm really doing is thinking about X. I'm just putting a don't before it. But my mind is now still completely absorbed by X. And so all my attention is on that. I've actually just given it more real estate. And another way to think about it is the more I fight against it, the more it fights back against me. So similarly to my kids, little kids, when one of them calls the other one a name or something, they call them stupid or something like that, and one of the kids responds very angrily and gets very upset and starts making a whole big fuss about it. What I often say, very simply, is to simply just try and ignore it. If we fight back, if we make a big deal about it, what happens? So the first kid starts to then feel the need to name call and insult even more, and then it starts to escalate. If the person just essentially ignores it and doesn't really care, then the quote-unquote perpetrator here, the offender here, will have nothing, will have no traction, and will kind of just give up. And the same is true with our thoughts. When we fight back against our thoughts, they just fight back stronger against us. And we turn it into a kind of power struggle. And it really becomes kind of a tug of war. And the best way to end the game of tug of war is just let go of the rope. The best way to end the power struggle is to just exit the whole power struggle, is to not make it about a power struggle. And so it's very counterintuitive. But instead of trying to get rid of our thoughts, to negate the thoughts, when we have the preoccupation of a certain behavior, we simply slow down and notice the thought and accept the thought. Now, accepting the thought doesn't mean I'm accepting that I'm going to act on the thought. It simply means I'm accepting the thought as a thought. I'm noticing that I am thinking something. But that all it is that I'm thinking it. That doesn't mean I actually need to do it. And that itself is already half the cure. Because if I'm in the experience of a thought that says I need to do X, and my only awareness is I need to do X, well then if I need to do X, then I need to do X. But if I can transition that into I am thinking I need to do X, I'm experiencing the thought of I need to do X, well then that doesn't necessarily mean that I actually need to do X. It just means that I'm experiencing a thought. And a thought doesn't have to be reality. It's just a thought. It's a reality of a thought. But it's not necessarily a reality of a reality. It's I'm experiencing the thought that I have to do X. And so if I can tell myself, I accept that I am having this thought. I am thinking the thought of I need to do X, of I need X, of I want X, of X is what I need, etc. That itself already creates now a distance between myself. I actually now have a sense of self, and myself is able to look at the thought and see the thought. So I'm able to see it, I'm able to look at it, I'm able to experience it not as what I am, not as my reality, but as something that I'm experiencing. And when I've done that, I've now already created a whole new world of possibilities, because now the thought here is present as a thought, which is separated from me as a person. I'm a person experiencing this thought. Now, what happens next, what we can do with that, is what we'll talk about in the next video. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please follow us on WhatsApp, YouTube, or Instagram. All our podcast series can be found wherever you listen to podcasts. I'd love to hear from you, so please reach out with questions, comments, or suggestions, or to be added to our WhatsApp groups. You can reach us through email using Yakov, YAKOV, .attached@gmail.com, or on WhatsApp at 773-888-2413.